Welcome, everybody, to Summit Live. We have an exciting session with you here today. We have a Don Pikula who used to lead a team of a $200 million sales team that consisted of 58 sales people. And, if you're joining us live right now, type in hashtag live. And if you happen to be watching the replay right now, type in hashtag replay so I know who is joining us on this stream. So, I want you to sit back, relax, and really, take your notebooks out because Don Pikula, he'll be sharing with you gems and nuggets of wisdom on how is it that you can position yourself as an expert, regardless of what industry you are, by leveraging off and building your own virtual studio. So without further ado, let's bring up Mr. Don Pikula.
How we doing? Good to see you.
Great to see you, Don. Yeah. So Don, yeah, share with us a little bit more about yourself. Share with us your sales background, and then how is it that you came to this stage of helping people build their own virtual studios and positioning themselves as an expert.
Well, sure, and that sounds like quite the leap. Like Don used to run a $200 million a year sales team, yeah, right. And now he's working on virtual studios. That is quite a leap. And really, kind of how that came to be was I was a cook. I mean, I that worked my way to be a chef, and I was in the food industry. But then I started selling equipment and the food, and that's when sales kicked in. That's when getting attention kicked in. That's when trying to really influence people to make a decision kicked in. And that process evolved all the way through to now that I really work on that first part. I get you attention. I make you look like a pro online, and we do it utilizing free technology.
Wow. Very powerful. Yeah. And I think it's very understated where, people think that, oh, I don't need to position myself online. But I think, if there's something that we've learned for the past 2 years is that if you ain't online, you're invisible. Totally.
Oh, if you weren't online, you were dead in the water. There's a lot of times where when we look, and by the way, I'm going to use some of it right now, if that's okay, just some of the technology. This is how most people are presenting right here. They're somewhere in the box, or they're narrating the PowerPoint. And either way, when you look at what we've gone through just in 2 years, I think it's safe to say that a fair amount of this isn't going back. A fair amount of this isn't going away. And the online presence, the online meetings, the convenience of it makes a lot of sense. And so, but if you look back, this isn't like a new thing. In fact, every 10 years or so, we change the way we communicate entirely anyway. I mean, it started with early PCs and early computers, and it was a green screen with a little green dot, and I played like Word Search or Owl or whatever it was on it. That was it. And then we started connecting through cell phones, but they were huge. They were in our car, and they were bulky, and they barely worked. But then over time, all of a sudden email comes in. And when you're in a world of color, black and white stands out. And so when you were getting email after email after email, nowadays we're almost gone for full circle to where the emails don't stand out. But then we even got into the phones. And I still see once in a great while, I'll find someone carrying a flip phone. But for the most part, it's a smartphone. And this is an early smartphone. This is one of the first Apples. So if you're caught with this now, you almost can't function. And then we had social media. You remember going through the social media transition? Like when you first got your MySpace or your Facebook page or whatever it was, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. But none of the businesses really jumped on board. I mean, do you remember most like corporations and the big stuffy C-suites? They were all, oh, this is a fad or this is going away. Did it go away? No, it's stuck. And in a lot of cases, this is where I was when the pandemic hit. And I think the thing to keep in mind is that we all thought this was going to bounce back. And yet we're all still thinking 2 years later, oh, this is going to bounce back. But it'll never return to what it was. See, at this point here, we were giving away food and food lines. And this is unfortunately, if you don't move forward, if you stay in the pack, if you don't stand out, if you don't get attention, this is what it looks like on the end of your meeting. your workshop, your webinar, whatever it is, I can't have you there. I can't have you not monetizing online. You have to be able to make money online. So the whole deal is, how do I get you to not be a talking head? How do we get to the point where you're not just a narrated PowerPoint? I think this is the point that it's important to really make sure that we stand out.
Wow, very powerful, and for those of you who are joining us on this stream today, if you found that impressive, type in impressive in the chat, because when I saw what Don could do with his virtual studio, I was absolutely blown away. And let me tell you, it's one thing to be able to showcase PowerPoint behind you, right? And to showcase a couple of videos, but it's a whole other skill set to really understand the psychology, the mindset behind it. How is it that you can create a compelling and persuasive presentation leveraging off of this technology? Because I think like what you mentioned, whenever there's a new technology that introduces itself, people are hesitant. First, they're hesitant, right? And then they start seeing the early adopters going in and be like, oh, okay, we'll see. And then they see more people going in and be like, oh no, I gotta hop on board. Right. And then by the time they hop on board, these people are just doing for the sake of doing, right? And then they are just scrambling about, how is it that I can showcase and model this, copy this, but they don't understand the thinking behind it, right? And perhaps you could share with us, what from how easy is it for people to adopt something like that for their own personal usage or in their business?
Well, that question depends on who's leading you and who introduced you to it. So I actually saw this system through my mentor, and I know someone you know really well, Joe Bauer. And I'm watching him do these presentations and these workshops, and websites are flying in and PowerPoints are coming in. He's got the Zoom wall behind him, and I was really impressed. And about 4 months into him using it with his students and in cold audiences, by the way, he then revealed what he was doing, gave us a training on it, and I was all in. I jumped in right away. I love being on that leading edge. Problem is, it's painful, and it's like the bloody leading edge. I mean, you get cut up, you get beat up, you get ripped up, and you get frustrated. And there was a couple moves I wanted to do. I wanted to have the PowerPoint. And by the way, platforms like Zoom, StreamYard, Realstream, they do a phenomenal job. And maybe later on we'll talk about how they actually are connected more than their competitors. But really, I just went at it, and then I gave up because I was frustrated. It didn't work. I'm not a techie by nature, which I know for a lot of my students, they kind of don't like hearing that until I realize, well, hey, if I was really techie, you wouldn't be able to do this. It would be at a level that would be like developer level or writing software. We're not doing any of that. We're utilizing free software that's been around for more than a decade. I mean, it's really not new. And I think the thing that's important to keep in mind is the platform that we're using. This is part of it right here. I mean, my kids will watch hours on end of someone playing a video game. A game they already have, just because they're in the corner and they're explaining the game and they're hooked. So this isn't new stuff. It's just new in the way we're using it. So what we did is we followed the streamers and the gamers to say, how do speakers, coaches, trainers, entrepreneurs, and executives get that same level of attention, get that same attraction at that first moment of contact? And how do you hold that attention all the way through a presentation, all the way through not just your call to action, but all the way through your Q&A and beyond, where when you finally decide to hit that end meeting button, it's painful because people are still engaged and still listening to every word you say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really like having people hang to every single word that you have to share and have to say, and it gives you an extra dimension to really showcase your message, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it really hit me when I was first presented with a presentation like that in this format. I was thinking, wow, I've seen online gamers, streamers streaming and doing
Mhm.
all of these fancy things, but I never thought that this could be applied in the business world as well. I never thought of bringing it into this context. So it's really great, what you are bringing to the audience. So what kind of in terms of conversions, like what when it comes down to the numbers, right, do you have any specific numbers or rough idea of the typical difference between a normal presentation without all of this background at virtual studio and then versus one with it?
Yeah, so you talk about the conversion rates using versus not using.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so what I would tell you is the convert everyone's getting lost in the herd. So early on, you were seeing about a 5 or 10% increase, which is fine. But keep in mind is that it's more about the presentation. See, when you first gather their attention, if you don't have a message behind it, you're not going to convert just because you look cool or look pretty or you're whiz banging a bunch of things on the screen. Really, all it's doing is taking something that converts already and increasing the engagement. Now, what you do with that engagement, how you walk them through that engagement, that's going to be the determining factor. But what we're seeing over and over is people who are able to go from zero to monetizing. And that's a big deal because now they're walking into an environment that in their mind, and I don't believe this to be true, but in their mind, they think it's a saturated market. They think there's no room for me. They think, well, someone else is doing it better. And they end up almost talking themselves out of it until they realize, oh, well, I'm not going to look like 95% of the speakers, trainers, and coaches out there. In fact, I'd probably say I don't look like 98% of the speakers, trainers, coaches out there. So they're monetizing for the first time versus zero. Now, the consummate pros, not many have adapted this, but those that have, they've seen their numbers maybe not double, but easy 20, 30% increase.
Wow. 20%, 30% increase. Imagine that sort of increase to your bottom line. What a difference it would make. And so, what do you find is the biggest hurdle when people are introduced to this concept? What stops them from really taking it on, even though they can see, wow, this is amazing. You're able
Mhm.
to showcase your message in a different way. But what usually stops them?
It looks scary. It looks scary and it looks complicated. See, we're using pretty much the same technology, the same software that they're using at your local media company, your local news station. So when you first plug that in, that's a lot of power. And it doesn't really function real well until you get about probably 2 or 3 scenes into it. And if that's all you had was 2 or 3 scenes, you'd be fine. But you're talking about adding a camera, choosing a background, setting up your mic. I mean, there's a lot of setup there that really people don't get over that initial hump, which is why we go through it step by step to make sure that there's very few things that you can show people in less than an hour and have an immediate result. Have something where they go, "Whoa, wow!" They just push a button, they change the scene, and all of a sudden things are just working right. They just go from one to the other and back, and they're all over the place. And then they're like, "Wow, I can really do this," and then they want more. So a lot of times they just need to get through that initial hump. That first hour makes all the difference.
Wow. So I so literally within an hour they can get their virtual studio set up.
Yeah, if you're talking about a scene or two, which is all I really start with. I only start with a scene or two because at a certain point, you do got to kind of ease into this, and that was my big revelation when I went in and I ran at it and I gave up. I gave up because I was trying to build the most complicated scene that I saw somebody use. Which, by the way, 3 months before that didn't exist. See, Joel, he ended up paying for this step by step, trial and error with coaches, and his coaches were the gamers and the streamers. And so when he said, "Hey, I want to bring PowerPoint," and they said, "Well, why would you want to do that?" Right now we're looking at it as, well, of course that makes sense. And Zoom has even come out with it, which, by the way, this is not just about the software I'm using is OBS. It's not just about that one piece of software. So having a virtual studio, and the reason I didn't just say I'm an OBS coach, an OBS mentor, OBS trainer, was because there's several little things that you can do to really stand out and garner attention. But when you're able to go through and say, hey, you know what? Here's the big picture. Here's what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to run workshops. I want to be able to run live events. I want to even host multiple speakers. And I want it in such a way where I can engage and transfer my process to a willing audience, an audience that's just dying to get it. Makes all the sense in the world. Unless you want to pay the full team, you could do that too. There's plenty of companies out there that will host your event. There's companies that will be your technician. You have almost no control of the process, and at the end of the day, there's a lot of rendering that goes on when you're relying on multiple ways to record, have backups. This records and captures everything too. And the moment you hit end or stop, it's rendered and done within 30 seconds. Your 12-hour marathon is all recorded and done, rendered everything.
Yep, and perhaps you could just explain to those of us who may not understand what rendering is.
Yeah, right. So, when you're recording, and record everything. By the way, I can't tell you how many times I wish I was recording something because greatness came out of it. And people are all, I don't know if I really want to record this. Just ask, and ask in a way that says, hey, I want to give you the recording when we're done. And it happens a lot with one-on-one coaching. You have this incredible breakthrough, and then you realize, that breakthrough wouldn't have just been for that person. There's a lot of people who could have lived vicariously through that experience. So step one, always record. Number two is that, if you're on Zoom or one of those platforms, I do record to the cloud, and it probably takes depending on the size of the recording, it could take a good hour to 2 hours for that recording to be available. And what has happened in that process is that's the rendering process. It's trying to get all the pieces together, put in a format that you can download and share. And sometimes an hour or two, I'm on to the next thing. And so now I got to build into my process a time to go back, pull the recordings down, because not everyone has unlimited cloud recording. I mean, there's times where you'll start getting emails, and I haven't had them delete anything for me, but they definitely say, hey, you've used all your space. You got to delete some stuff. But now I got to loop back and pull all that down, upload it onto something else that I can transfer, because you can't email a 45-minute video. There's just no way. So you got to then put it into either Vimeo or Groove, or you got to put into YouTube on an unlisted name so no one else can see it, and then you got to send it. That can be a full-time job for either a tech, a virtual assistant, and at that point, are they really going to do it right? So what this does, this allows you to scale. It allows you to take it to the next level without having a team of 4 or 5 full-time people making it, and yet you look like you have an entire team behind you. Your deliverables are, boom, they're out to your student, to your client, to your customer, to your patient right after the meeting. You're following up before they even expect you to, and yet you're just either a solopreneur or a very small organization. But people look at this like, wow, that must be a pretty big company. I wonder who he's got doing behind the scenes working for him.
Yeah, and definitely that's something that that's really, really powerful, right? Right now, the individual is empowered with the technology and the tools to have what typically a team, what would take a team of at least 4 or 5 people, right, in the back end.
During a live event, you would have 3 or 4 people. On the back end, you'd have 1 or 2 full time, just trying to keep track, because we ought to be doing the things we're really good at. And it's taken me a while to even realize, because people said that to me all the time, Don, do what you're good at. And if I bring back the sales organization for a second, the thing about that sales organization, and that was a pretty big room, and it was a really good room. It was a talented room. And I think the part that I need to kind of remember is it wasn't about me doing the work. It wasn't about me saying how much can I sell? How fast can I get this done? But I couldn't keep up. If all I did with this room was go out and sell myself, add restaurants, add line items, sell more food, whatever it was, the numbers would all but deteriorate. I couldn't fill the bucket fast enough. When I realized that it's all about getting each one of these people to be better, then I got a chance. And if I look at every day, who am I working with? What can I help them do? How can I help them be better today than they were before? And that's when your effort can multiply. So even at that point, there were about 55 salespeople and 6 managers. Then I had to realize, well, I can't work on 55 people, but I can work on 6. And if I can work on 6 who can affect the 55, I can really move. But that comes to delegation. And so how clear are we at delegating? Is what we're delegating being understood? And is it being taken action on? So that's the process between having the large arenas where you really have to delegate and you really have to be clear and you really have to follow up, and that becomes your full-time job, versus in the solopreneur, it's all about the content, the coaching, and being with your people. So the less time that you can spend doing those tasks that aren't revenue generating, but that are extremely important, the better off you're going to be.
Yep. And definitely getting the tech on your hands in total control. It holds a whole other dimension of being able to respond and react to your intentions almost instantaneously, right? Yeah, even if you have a tech team, having that synchronicity with them, it's tough. It's really tough.
And knowing, by the way, that it's okay to screw something up. It's okay to have a tech failure. In fact, the only thing I promise you is that you'll have a tech failure. Zoom will kick you out. Your one of your monitors will go down. Your internet connection will be bad sometimes. I mean, because we're doing this traveling, by the way. We don't have to do this just from one office or one building or one studio. We're bringing it with us. So if you go into it knowing, hey, something's going to happen, it's going to be all about how I react to that thing that my audience will remember. They won't remember the thing that happened, but they will remember how you responded to it.
Yep, that's definitely a huge learning. And how is it that you personally overcame your own, if you had any, your own hesitations to start taking action and start taking this seriously?
Well, I think if you look at what it is that gets you moving first, right? Because I believe in having a positive mindset, a clear mindset, but that wasn't getting me very far, because it was just in a sense, it turned to dreaming. And I told myself, well, hey, think it and it will be possible. See it in your hand or see it in your head, you'll hold it in your hand, all that good stuff, which I believe in. But it really came down to, okay, so now what? What are you going to do about it? And I really adopt a philosophy of messy action. And again, something that I learned from a coach is, would you please just move forward and fail fast? Would you just go try to screw up? Because that way you're going to learn something and you're going to do something. So you got to get out of your own way, remove the self-conscious, remove the perfectionism, which, by the way, I'm a massive perfectionist. I need things to be just so, but I have to realize that that's not always serving me. So there's times where you just put yourself out there. I'm not saying unprepared, but I'm saying, at what point is it good enough to move forward? Is it good enough to take that first step? Is it good enough to get traction? If you don't get that traction, you'll never build the momentum, no matter how much you've been working on your car. So that's it for me. It's how many times can I get out there? How many people can I meet? How many times can I put myself in situations that I don't feel quite comfortable? And all of a sudden I move forward. I mean, I'll share with you even today, I got about 65 students, almost 70 students who I'm with like twice a week right now. And when I look at, I still get a little butterflies getting in front of this group. Now, not debilitatingly so, not to the point that I won't push start meeting and move forward. That's unthinkable now. But early on, that was like, ooh, what if they don't like me? What if they don't like what I say? What if I don't know the answer to their question? All these what ifs. And then it was, oh, what if they do? What if they do move forward? What if they are able to create a studio? What if they are able to monetize their system and interview people and create multiple streams of income? That's what drives you. But it starts with just taking messy action, realizing it's the worst thing that can happen. I can't really sell them any less if I'm not selling them anything. It's time to move forward.
Yep. Definitely moving forward, and I like the whole concept of taking messy action, and then instead of rather sitting back, just over analyzing and saying, "Oh my God, this is not perfect. That's not perfect. I can improve on this," and then you never get anywhere. Perhaps you could also share with us, what was some of your most bombastic failures when it comes to presenting online, and then how is it that you managed it and overcame it?
Well, this was actually something that we were presenting. I was presenting with Joel Bauer, and we had an audio failure. And you got a group of 300 people of a warm audience, by the way. This was not a cold audience. This is a warm audience of 300. And all of a sudden he goes, Don, I can't hear you. Now, I'm at home in my office. And when I look, if I can look through this wall here, my wife's in the other room, sitting in the living room. And she can hear me. She hears what's going on, but she's nervous for me, right? More nervous than I am. She starts hearing me say, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is it working now? And she gets up and she has to go up the stairs. She just can't be around it. But all it was his speakers were turned down. He didn't do it on purpose. It happened. Everyone else is like in the comments, we can hear you. They're messaging me, Don, you're good. We can hear you. He just can't hear you. But there was a good 2 or 3 minutes there where you're just like, get me out of here. But again, you come to expect those. You just prepare your audience for it. The fact of, hey, if anything catastrophic happens, if we get totally booted off or the internet goes down or the power goes out or whatever it is, I'll be back in about 5 minutes. And if I'm not back in 5 minutes, just understand that you will receive a new link or a new email, and we'll pick up right where we left off. And people are a lot more tolerant than I think we give them credit for. I think they like to see that you're a human, that this isn't perfect. Because if it's perfect, then they won't be able to do it. If it has a margin of error that's that big, they won't take action. But if you say, hey, I've been doing this for a while and I'm pretty good at it, and yet I have challenges, then they'll move forward too.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's very easy for everyone to feel to have that imposter syndrome. And yeah, by the way, that live, I was there as well, and I was watching it. But you handled it well. You were like, okay, is this working? Is this working? Can you hear me? And then eventually, as the messages came in, it's like, okay, we're all good. Mm-hmm. And then it's just seeing how is it that the both of you were able to work on your toes and then to just get everything in order. And I think is what you shared is very important in the sense where it's important to set the framing, set the context, share with people, hey, the potential outcomes, the potential failures, and just be okay, be human, right? And I think that's something a lot of presenters can learn from. How is it that they can create a safe space for them as well to fail and to fail forward?
Yep. Well, and a lot of that, it does come down to preparation, and it does come down to your environment. The two things you can control. Again, you can't control the failures. You can't control the internet. You can't control the tech issues. But can you be hardwired versus on Wi-Fi? In most cases, yeah, if you're stationary. Can you control that you're not in a loud, distracting space? Yep. So think about what you can control. Can I have another link ready to go? Let's say you get to the end and all of a sudden, maybe it's not even broadcast related or Zoom related, but let's say it's your link, it's your call to action, it's your website. Let's say that goes down. And now you got a bunch of people who, man, they're ready to like invest in you and ready to use your process, but yet they can't get to you. Well, you got a couple of choices there. Why wouldn't you have a redundancy? Why wouldn't you have a copy somewhere else? And listen, I'm not trying to complicate people's life and say, hey, you got to have, a backup for every single thing. But even when I look at even funnel platforms now, whether you're on ClickFunnels, you're on Groove, if you have a course and it's Kajabi, whatever it is, why wouldn't you have a backup of that? Maybe not as beautiful and as built out and as special as like your main one, but wouldn't you like to swap and have the backup? Because I'll tell you, I've had people where I know it's working and it's working because sales are coming in. And yet a couple people reach out to you and say, hey, I think I bought it was spinning. I never got a confirmation. And that would be a sale lost. But when you can say, hey, you know what? No problem. Let me send you this link right here. This will take care of you versus, oh, I don't know what happened. Just try again. That's where they're not going to get so lenient with you, is when you just say, oh, well, hey, would you just try again? But if you have a plan B or a plan C, and in our cases, when we're broadcasting, our plan Bs and Cs are better than most people's plan As. And my students need to realize that sometimes is, you are on that You're not on the bleeding edge, but you're definitely on the cutting edge. You're out there far enough where you can screw this up and still retain their attention.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I love the idea of being able to screw up and still retain people's attention. It really brings me back, to a live event once in Beijing. A long time ago, I was speaking to an international expatriate crowd. It was my very first time presenting to an international audience, and then although it was a small group, I just recall going up on stage. I start sharing my story, and then I went into robot mode, and then it was like monotonous, and then the feeling of seeing your audience just literally die right in front of you. Oh my god, it was like killing my soul. And then my partner was at the back of the room. He was like, oh Lord, what's going on? Oh, but this is where we learn through experience how important creating the right environment, the right context is, so that you can be able to fail and then yet still retain your audience's attention. And again, we don't give enough credit to our fellow human beings, our audience. They're actually very forgiving, and like what you highlighted, in fact, there's a part of them who loves to see that human aspect, where, hey, you fail and then you're human too. That means that gives me hope as well. I don't have to be perfect. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. So who do you see is really benefiting the most from having their own virtual studio? Who can benefit from this?
Well, about a month ago, I would have told you people who do workshops, people who do webinars, people who have cold audiences that come and they need to grab their attention fast. But what I'm finding is it's actually a lot of people that work one-on-one. Because some of the people that work one-on-one in coaching environments, they're struggling for that one-on-one connection to be able to show them. And they're like, I wish we could do this in person again, or there's so much I would show you. But when you think about what you're actually able to do, I could actually bring you in and actually coach you one-on-one. And we could actually have a whole talk and a whole session just on attention. And now that we're able to talk, I'd be doing the same thing if we were in person right now. I mean, I'd have to write it upside down so you could read it. But in this case now, the one-on-one coaching can be a whole different experience. So if we talked about attention, we talked about, hey, it's about 3 to 9 seconds that you have to grab someone's attention. Now, what can you do in those 3 to 9 seconds to grab their attention? But if you looked at the story you just shared, it's not just 3 to 9 seconds once, it's 3 to 9 seconds over and over and over. There's also a number to maintain their attention. And if you find yourself in that monotonous mode, you're like, oh man, I'm just stuck. Well, you need to have a shift, or you need to change something to get them to look again, to get them to pay attention again. Now, and you probably did this, but maybe even you're on stage, you catch yourself, be like, hey, raise your hand. Did I just go into monotonous mode? Did I just go into lose you mode? A simple little, and that's not even self-deprecating. That's just being real as a human. Did I lose you all right there? Boom. You got them right back. But sometimes that happens with our speech patterns. Other times that happens with us changing the scene. And maybe we linger here for a little bit. We make the point. We go on to the next scene. Maybe we talk about exactly what's going on, where maybe our audience is just bored. Maybe our audience is, and I actually read this article, people are looping videos to fake paying attention in Zoom meetings. Now, when I first saw it, I thought that was awesome. Because again, I could make a 30-second video of myself just kind of doing a little bit of nodding, a little bit of whatever, and just hit play on that over and over. But, that's not the type of attention we're looking for. People being creative to get around our attention. We need to find ways, because if we don't actually secure their attention, nothing else in the process is going to matter. Nothing. Because they won't hear it. And in some ways, if you go, I got my best phrases, my best teachings, my best process, my best whatever. And if you don't have their attention, you go through all that, it's wasted. Because the only thing that they do hear is if you go say it again. And like, oh, wow, now this person, either one-on-one or as a group, they're not listening. I think they said that before. I think they're repeating themselves, even though they didn't hear you, which is a shame. So I always watch, either online or in person, do I have this person's attention? And do I remain in rapport? And rapport, I don't mean like, hey, be nice or try to keep them tell them a story or find a common sport. No, nothing like that. But are our minds focused on the same thing right now? And if our minds aren't focused on the same thing, or I think our minds aren't focused on the same thing, and there's ways to tell with speech pattern and body language, even online, how do I get back to this? What's my loop to maintain or reestablish rapport before I continue? And then you'll find yourself, you may not get through all of your content, but believe me, I've seen speakers and coaches and leaders and people, they got through all their content. They're like, I did a great job in that meeting. I rocked that. I told them everything I wanted to say. And the retention from that employee, from that student, from that customer, from that patient was zero. So it's not about how much we can present. It's about how much can be retained. So constantly reestablishing that rapport, constantly looking at in 15 to 20 second increments. What am I doing? What am I saying? And is anyone listening? And if not, just reset. No big deal.
Yep. That's a great tip. I think for most people, they wouldn't think about resetting. They'd be like, hey, is the audience here with me? Okay, maybe I should just maybe change my tonality and go on to the next point, and then they just lose the audience, right? And so how is it that through your trainings that you really drive people to take action? As we know in our industry, a lot of people come in, sign up for a program, and then they'll be like, okay, I'm getting all of this knowledge, it's great, but I'm not doing anything about it. How do you drive people to take action?
Yeah, well, first you got to break it down and make it simple. If what you're doing is complex, and this can be complex if you let it get complex, but if you can break it down and then better yet, teach people live, capture that interaction of it being live. And I know there's people out there with their process. Well, I just need to show it, or I model the behavior, or I model the question. But when you teach that live, and the rabbit holes come up, and the rough edges need to get smoothed out, people relate to that. And they're like, oh, so now when they get in there and their setup isn't perfect, they hit a wrong button, they don't put something in the right spot. They're not, oh, well, I watched Don do it in 15 minutes and it was perfect. And so now they just get frustrated. But when they watch someone else who's being coached and mentored through the process make the simple move, they're like, oh, well, it's not just Don doing it. It's, I see someone I can relate to who's not a techie. Don says he's not a techie. I don't believe him. But now they see someone doing it who they know is not a techie. Oh, I can do that. Oh, that's how you make that happen. Oh, they hit the wrong button too. Right? So anything you can do, if you can teach it live, even if it's one-on-one or one on a group, capture that teaching. You got to get permission to use it, but maybe you set permission in advance. Hey, I'm gonna walk you through this process, and as we do, we already established that we record everything, just because I don't want to miss anything. I've had too many gems go away because I wasn't recording, and they're gone forever. So I'm recording. I'll share the recording with you, and listen. If you're cool with it, and we have a massive breakthrough, would you mind if I use this? And the biggest one I do is when it comes to troubleshooting. Someone's got a problem, an issue. And you might think this is crazy, but I love when I hear an issue that's really complicated. Because if I jump on with someone and the issue is like 30-second fix, it's kind of like it's a great training video because people want that to be the easy thing. But I like the ones where I got to try 3 or 4 things. And it's not that I don't care that I don't know what I'm doing. It's about the process. So someone has an audio issue and I walk them through, start here. Okay, well, that's not it. Let's go here. Well, that's not it. Let's go here. Now people can go through that process with me. Chances are it's one of those first 3 things for 90% of the people out there. But the 4th and 5th thing that we checked with this really hard issue, I can't duplicate that if I'm just going to go out there and teach on my own. I can only duplicate that if I have a willing participant. And now you're showcasing a student, you're showcasing a mentee. People will relate to that mentee. And now you may even establish connections within your own group where now they'll help and support each other. And that is critical because you can't do it all by yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely facilitating that connection with one another, building up your community. Talking about community, we are building a community here in Summit, and of course, together with our partners in Groove Asia as well.
Mhm.
What are some of your tips when it comes to community building? How do you keep your community engaged, supporting each other, and growing?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on what is your platform to build that community. So if all you're doing is live training or all you're doing is on Zoom, I really lean on Facebook for the community building. Private group, a group that has to be members only, right? So that only people who've invested in your process. Now you can have other ones. You can have free groups in there too, your personal page, whatever. But if you get people who are going through the same experience, trying to accomplish the same goal, and you put them together, and you just get one or two, it only takes one or two to start a post, to put themselves out there. In fact, one of the first things I ask my students to post is post a picture of you in your environment, in your background. Now, there's a reason that today I only got a blue background, right? But there's also what I teach them is what background do your people expect you to be in? If you're a medical professional, do they expect to see your degrees on the wall or an office? If you're corporate, do they expect to see a boardroom or an environment? If you're in wellness, do they expect to see you in kind of a really kind of soothing environment? Do you put your hometown behind you, your major city, whatever it is? But I asked them to post that. And once you get a post and you get that first comment, now they feel comfortable. So sometimes you have to actually dig into your membership. I don't care if it's 2 or if it's 200. Sometimes you got to dig and reach out privately and say, "Hey, I just wanted to reach out and just encourage you. If you wouldn't mind, I loved your background. Would you mind posting that?" And if you can get the first person to post that first thing, and then you like it and comment on it, sometimes that's it. They see, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. And all of a sudden, everyone's posting their background, their environment. And by the way, helping each other saying, oh, that not just, oh, that looks great, but also, hey, you know, I kind of think have you considered this type of background? Have you considered that maybe your lighting isn't right? So they really need to help each other and coach each other. Not looking for a bunch of just, oh, that looks awesome, good job, so proud of you. But you know, can we have some constructive feedback as well? Of hey, that really related to me, or you know what, that really doesn't relate. Can you help me understand, or are you open to making a change?
Hmm. And when it comes to community building, um, do you personally have like tons of groups, that you build, and then, or if not, where do people start really for their own business, or for their own for example, if they are freelancer offering their services, where do they start?
Well, a little bit depends on where you are now. Most people have a Facebook page or a LinkedIn page. So if you're really corporate, go LinkedIn. And if but the money's still in Facebook, right? So I go to Facebook. Now you got to be a couple things. You got to really look at it's not your place to talk about politics, religion, or what's going on in the world. Once you see Facebook as your tool, it's the way you make money. It's the way you find students and clients. You stop with the doom scrolling. You stop with posting. You stop with commenting on things that you know will get you in trouble, right? So because you got to preserve that because you can get kicked off pretty quickly. So start there, clean up your personal page, then have a business page, right? Something your name or your business, and really you need to get into a group and you need to start a group page. And it could be a public group page, but one that you maintain control over, that you have additional admin for, even if it's just your spouse or even if it's just your friend that's additional admin. You say, hey, I don't need you to do anything. I just need to be the admin for this page in case anything happens to my profile, I don't lose my group. That's an important piece. And then you just got to you could just start teaching in that group. You could just start sharing some of what you know, some of what you did, some of the results you generate. Start celebrating. See, the part where the studio goes is this studio ends up, if you would like to take it this far, with your own TV show, where you're interviewing and celebrating students, colleagues, professionals, people in the community, and now you're actually sharing your audience and introduce them to people that are very helpful, very insightful, and you just build that audience organically. Now, the other thing I'd tell you, though, is that just like whenever I find myself struggling, it's because I'm not following what my mentor told me to do, or there's been times in life where I haven't had a mentor and I haven't been investing in myself at that level. Find someone who's done what you want to do and pay them to show you how. So if you're corporate, find someone who's really good at LinkedIn and have them. You could trial and error, but how much time and money are you going to waste trying to figure it out? And I'd say Facebook's kind of the same way. Find someone really good. I don't do my own ad spend on Facebook. I just don't. I learned how, but I don't because someone's going to be able to do it better. And that difference between what I would do and the way the professional, where they would do it for me, that gap usually almost always, and don't do it if it doesn't work, but that gap pays for their fee and then some.
Yep.
Find someone who's doing what you want to do. Find someone who's the group you want to have. You don't need to be complicated. You don't need like 10 different groups, but find someone that you want to follow. You want yours to be like theirs, and figure out either where they learned how to do it or ask them.
Yep. Yeah, and definitely, at the very least, you have learned how to do like Facebook ads, paid ads, and all that. At least it gives you the insights on what to look out for, and so that you're able to tell apart, a professional versus a newbie who's just trying to make it in the market and just trying to sell you something, right?
Yeah. And there's ways to do it organically. I mean, people go to paid ads all the time. Like, oh, that's going to do it. If I put $5,000 or $6,000 behind this, I'll get 100 people in there. They put the money there and no one shows up. So it's not all about how much money did I put behind it if you have something wrong in the process. So test small. That's that messy action part. You're really not going to screw it up with $40. You're going to screw it up with 400 or 4,000. So put a couple of dollars behind something. See if it works. But then, maybe you've screwed up to the point where, okay, I lost $40. Well, it's better than trying to plow 4,000 into something and have that go to zero. So then once you're there and you have proof and you have a process, then you can scale. And now you could put 40,000 or 40,000 or 100,000 a month into something, but you better make sure that works before you put that kind of money, or you're going to be, I don't care who you are, you're going to be out of funds pretty quick.
Yep. And so previously you talked about monetization using your virtual studio. So what are the ways where people are able to monetize with this tool?
Well, there's a couple different things. One, the obvious one is with your own programs and processes, right? Having a cold audience, doing a workshop, going live on social media, whatever it is, to get them into your own processes and groups. That's number one. And that's the one that most of us think about. Now, even within those groups, do you have a way to have an ascension model where not that every time they turn around, there shouldn't be something that you're selling them, right? It shouldn't be, hey, you know what? You could do this if you paid me more, or if you did this course. I don't like that. But I do like when someone offers the opportunity to help shorten a learning curve. Do you want to get there faster? Have that ready to go. But then even if we look at, okay, where would I start? Well, maybe there's someone else that I really like their process. And is there a way to start a joint venture or promote that person or somehow have an affiliate link? Is there a way to once I do build an audience, which is going to take some time, but if I stick to it consistently, now I have yet another revenue model where, let's say I like someone's process, I believe in them, I vetted them to a reasonable degree, and I introduce them to my audience. And I said, hey, I believe in your system and process so much, I would like you to make a pitch. Let's talk about what that's going to be. And let's talk about a percentage that you and I could share, because this is an audience you wouldn't have had access to. So now there's joint ventures added too. So people start with yours, but you're going to need to get in front of other people's audiences and be prepared to share some of that revenue. You're going to have to. And then also be prepared that when you do start building some traction, that you look for ways to help other people. And it's okay to ask for a percentage for yourself. In fact, if you don't know that was possible, then you didn't ask, you didn't get. So those are some other ways aside from if you did build an affiliate link with someone's program where you are selling their program. Maybe I know Groove had a phenomenal program that people made a lot of money doing. Wasn't crazy complicated, but you had to give above and beyond the value that they were going to invest in, and then it was a no-brainer. It was a great affiliate program. But that's just another way. You got to have 3 or 4 ways. You got to have 3 or 4 ways that you can generate revenue, because that way you don't get stuck with just one.
Yep. Multiple streams of income, and definitely it gives you the degrees of freedom to be able to adapt to the environment you're in and to really see what really clicks with your market. That's very, very important. And then I see that we've got a question from our founder, John Chong, who's asking, what would you say is the most difficult part of being a speaker?
Well, I answered John's question 2 ways. One is what I thought the most difficult part would be. So I thought the most difficult part would be content. How do I go up and talk for half hour, an hour, 90 minutes? God forbid I got to talk for 3 days. But now it's actually the reverse. It's what do I take out? What do I not say or go into that would confuse my message, that would get people off track, that would purposely put rabbit holes in front of people that they would fall in and twist an ankle? So really the hardest part of being a speaker is what do I not say and what do I hold back and how do I relate it in for later, even though it might be something I really want to say or something I really think is important, but the audience isn't ready for that, or that wouldn't land in such a way that it would be received and understood. Because in a sense, if I put something out there, going back to that attention model, if I don't have their attention or they're not in the right state of mind to explore that idea or that concept, and I put it out there, not only did they not get it, but then I can't use it later when they would be in the right frame of mind. So I just wasted it. So it's really thinking, what are you not going to say versus what you're going to say?
Yeah, I think especially as an educator, you want to give the most, to your audience, and there's always that temptation to go more and more and more and more and overwhelm them, when really what they need is to go deep, deep, deep,
Mhm.
right? And also not to be afraid to repeat, to have that repetition so that it drives into the audience's mind, and then it eventually ignites that process of gaining traction to really take action towards what they need to do. Yep.
Yeah, you got to lay that foundation. And so many times, speakers, trainers, and coaches want to teach their thing. They want to go really in depth with all the stuff because most people have spent a lot of time studying what it is that they teach, getting really good at their craft and really diving into the why and how it works. And sometimes the less of that you can do, the better. Can you break it down so you can explain this to an 8-year-old child? And if you can explain it to an 8-year-old child, you can explain it to an audience. If you can only explain it to another scholar, you can only explain it to a colleague, you can only explain it to someone who studied it too, no group of people is going to be able to consume that. So understand the other part is that as you go through your process, you better have a process or be refined towards a process, because just because you've done it 100 times, it's that person's first time being exposed to it. And so if you shortcut the foundation, trying to get to all the fancy woodwork you're going to do, you did a disservice to that person, that individual, that group, because they're not going to appreciate the end result. In fact, they're probably just going to ignore it because it's not going to make sense in context to how a normal person would learn, how someone who would be able to understand and layer these pieces on top of each other to get the puzzle built, versus just showing them, here it is all built and I did it. They're not going to relate to that.
Yep, it's like what they say, if you come up on stage and then you're Superman, you can do this, you can do that, you've achieved this and that, people will be like, whoa, but I can't relate to that. It's like he's not human. Right. And so what I find that as speakers is very easy for us to take for granted the knowledge that we've built, like what you mentioned. It's something that we've gone through over and over again, over 100 times, thousands of times. It's become second nature to us. Right. And then it's always important for us to take a step back, look through our timeline and see, hey, what is it that I needed to learn back then? What was that magical insight at that point in time that blew my mind? I remember when I was first exposed to the seminar industry. I was in a multi-speaker event. So Richard Branson was there, and then the likes of like Tony Robbins was there. And then I remember when I was sitting, and then Tony was on stage with his big teeth and with his huge presence. He was like, success is all about 80% mindset, 20% mechanics. And then I was like, whoa, just gobbling it up. Right. But it's easy for us to take that for granted, especially when we've been in this industry for a very long time. It's been repeated over and over again. It's like, yeah, you should know that. But it's knowing that not everybody knows that, and not to take for granted that people know that. And it comes back to framing as well. Frame your audience, where you want to build that solid foundation. So even though if you may repeat something, hey, it's for your benefit. And if you hear it another time, maybe it's from a different angle. It can help support your foundations. So that's very, very powerful. So could you also share with us, in our last few minutes, what what is the software that you use for this virtual studio?
Yeah, so this is OBS. This is Open Broadcaster Software. So you're able to download this if you search the OBS project or OBS or on Google or anything, the obsproject.com, Apple, Mac, you can download either version for free. And again, the gamers have done most of the testing. They've done most of the development. This is not owned by a company. This is free software that's constantly updated, constantly adjusted. And really, if it was owned by a company, it wouldn't do half of what it can do. So there's all kinds of plugins and things you can add later. You can make things fly around the screen. You could be fancy. But if you just start downloading that software, and what I'll do, I'll send the link directly to you so they can reach out to you and get that link. And maybe I'll include a small short training, but I'll send that to you, that they could get started and at least play with it. But again, you're going to open this thing and it's going to look intimidating. It's going to look like it's got a lot of buttons, and it does. It's got a lot of capabilities. We're only going to use a fraction of a sliver of a smidgen of what this thing can do. And that's how we avoid getting frustrated. We're only really using the snowflake on the tip of the iceberg of its capabilities, but we're using exactly what we need to engage an audience and secure their attention.
Yep. Just small steps at the time. You don't need to use the entire suite of features. And I think that's what overwhelms people. When they first look at OBS, they'll be like, oh my God, look at all of these interfaces, all of these buttons. What is this red and green bar that's going up and down? Oh my God. But yes, it's taking that one step at a time. And definitely, for those of you who are interested, drop us an email, with the subject line Don, and then we'll share with you the links and of course the training as well that Don will be sharing that you mentioned. And to share more with all of you, Don will be speaking more and sharing more of his insights in our upcoming events, and he will be going deeper into how is it that you can position yourself as an expert, as an authority, but not only that, understand the psychology behind all of this virtual studio to leverage off and take advantage within your own industry. Right. And it doesn't matter how old you are or how not techy you are. Don takes you step by step. Right. And he helps guide you through everything bite size, right? And then not only that, because when these sessions are conducted, you'll be able to experience it live. He'll be able to guide you as well. So if you're interested in what Don has to offer, just drop us an email. dot with the subject line Dawn. Send it to SummitLive@summitasia.com. That's SUMMIT live LIVE at summitasia.com, and then we'll get back to you about it. So we have an exciting year ahead, and then I see that Mingru is saying, if I can go through the training, it will be excellent. I'm sure there are many more of you out there who are looking forward to Dawn's training. So make sure you follow our channels, our social media channels. Keep in touch. You can always check us out at www.summitasia.com. We have an exciting lineup of speakers to speak alongside with Dawn to really empower you with the skills, knowledge, and tools that you need to succeed in our world today. Especially with what's going on in our world, I believe that whatever gift that you have, whatever products or service that you have to share, it's important and it matters. You matter. And so, what I really like to thank you, Dawn, for taking your time to share with us here today. It's plenty of insights. And then I see like Mingru. Mingru is also sharing. She has downloaded OBS, but she's still not sure how to use it. Don't worry, Mingru. As long as you're following us here in Summit, we will have a very special session where Dawn will teach us, hold our hands step by step on exactly how to use it. So our founder also says, thank you, Dawn. And George is one of our leaders in Japan who says, this has been a great Summit Live with Dawn. Thank you so much, Dawn, for sharing your experience and tips. So, so with that.
Well, if I can answer Ming real quick. So
Yep.
There's a lot you can look at online for streamers and gamers. The piece that I teach is specifically based for speakers, trainers, coaches, entrepreneurs, and executives for workshops, sales meetings, one-on-one coaching, small group sessions. Again, I'm teaching a very specific slice of what you'll find online. Now, that's probably after hundreds of hours of me watching all those 8 to 10 minute videos and being like, oh, and I get lost. We're really looking to make sure we use it for this specific purpose. And that, I think, is the piece that will really change the way you interact with your audience. Because that's not what most of OBS is out there doing. 99% of OBS is gamers and streamers. And that's a good thing. And I've had a few developers and gamers join the program, and all of a sudden they come up with these podcasts, these audiences that they've built, not from their years of gaming, but from their 2 months or 1 month of actually using it this way to build an audience and a following and to monetize. So yeah, hang in there, send an email. I'll get the training over. Ching Yu will look it over, make sure it's cool, and I'll send it out.
Yep, that's great. Yeah, thanks, Don. And then Mingru also says thanks. And then we've got Sandy, who's joining us from the US as well, New Mexico. She says would love to go to training, and then she's saying that she needs that one-on-one training. Yep. So definitely, for those of you who are interested in Dawn's training, send us an email with the title Dawn in the subject. And then, just email us at SummitLive@summitasia.com. And we will share with you the latest information on Dawn's next training and of the bonuses as well. So with that, I'd like to just thank you, Dawn, for really sharing with us all of these golden nuggets and also really empowering us with the confidence to step out there and just do it. Take that messy action. Yep. So thank you very much, Dawn.
So thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Great to meet your audience, by the way.
Okay,
Thanks.
cheers. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, do remember to follow, like, and subscribe to us. We are streaming live every Thursday at 6 p.m. GMT +8. So we look forward to seeing you in our next session. Bye for now.